His presence is at the side of your bed each morning, calling, demanding your attention. He wants his voice to be the first voice that you hear. He demands your attention as he awakens you with words of worry and stirs you with stress. He wants you to dread the day before it begins. You can be very sure that your giant is standing by your bed, hoping to take you down. And he's just getting warmed up. He breathes down your neck as you eat your breakfast and try to enjoy that precious cup of coffee. He's whispering in your ear as you walk out the door, shadowing every step. He peers over your shoulder as you read your emails. He checks your calendar to see where there might be an opportunity to turn up the heat. He can talk trash with the best of the playground basketball bullies. You don't have what it takes. You're not up to this one. You're not worth anything to your boss. You are just another in a long line of losers. These are the taunts of the giant. Let's call him Goliath. If you let him, he will turn your day into your version of the valley of Elah, taunting, teasing, testing, as he shouts out his boast, ringing out from one side of the valley to the other. Do you recall how Goliath bedeviled the army of Israel? For 40 days, every morning and evening, the Philistine champion strutted in front of the Israelite army. Goliath and the Philistines were the perpetual enemies of Israel. They were the bullies of the region. They were always making trouble, sapping the joy of God's people. That is, until the day that the shepherd boy David made his appearance in the Israelite encampment when he arrived to deliver the lunch that was sent by his father for his brothers who were in the army. David casts a long giant shadow across the pages of the Bible. More is written about David than any other person except Jesus. More than 60 chapters tell his story. Many other chapters written by him, for example, in the Psalms that we love so much. Of all we are given about David, nothing is more valuable than this account where he states this simple, powerful promise when he goes into battle with Goliath. All those gathered here, he said to Goliath, will know that it's not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's. The battle is the Lord's. Do you ever need a reminder of that promise that the battle is the Lord's? I'm pretty sure that many of you are facing a Goliath in your life right now. They still roam the world, these giants. Difficulty, debt, disease, dialysis, disappointment, discouragement. That's just one letter of the alphabet. The giants are out there. These supersized challenges, they steal our sleep, they suck the joy out of our lives. These giants want to dominate your world. However, I need to tell you this. I have the privilege of telling you this. They cannot dominate you. Why? I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. And the battle belongs to the Lord. The battle you are facing isn't yours to face. The battle you think you have to fight, it's not your battle. It's the Lord's. I encourage you to do what the young shepherd boy did, just as David did, pick up 5 stones to carry into battle with you. You'll recall when David went down to the creek, he picked up 5 smooth stones. I see him carefully selecting those stones. It's not a random thing where he just bends over. I think he's looking at these stones, selecting them well. I read an account this week that the pollen counts have been up greatly with all of this rain. It's true. Why 5 stones? Why not 10? Why not 2? I have to think there are some answers that are tucked away there in the account for us to learn. So 5 lessons that we learn from David. The first lesson has to do with your past. When you face your giant, it's important to remember the victories of the past. Watching Goliath strut, hearing the taunt, it jogged, I think, David's memory. The valley of Elah was simply the next time that God would deliver David. It was deja vu for him. While everyone else is quivering in fear, David remembers how God has given him special strength before, when he faced really big challenges. And so when he's called before King Saul, who should be the hero in this story as the king appointed by God, David tells him, I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goats. When a lion or bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and I club it to death. It's a great story. I've done this to both lions and bears, and I'll do it to this pagan Philistine too, for he has defied the armies of the living God. Everyone else saw Goliath and retreated. David saw Goliath and he realized, I've done something like this before and God made me victorious. I'll do it again. A good memory helps create a hero. A bad memory makes a wimp, a spiritual wimp. The Bible gives us this timely reminder. Remember the wonders he's performed, his miracles, and the rulings he has given. So draw upon those places where you have faced giants before, when God walked you through those valleys. Remember the ways in which God has been faithful, because great is his faithfulness. And know that he will be faithful again. Recall those places where he's watched over you and those times where he protected you and you just knew that it was by the grace of God that that's happened. Take some time. Take some time to write down all those times. To write down the ways that God has blessed and protected you so that the next time something comes, you can lay that list out. Not only before God, but before that giant who's there taunting you, teasing you, testing you, and say, see, it's God's battle. You're beaten. Valuable memories. When you face your giants, one of the most important directions you can look is back. Look back and say, wait a second, God has been faithful to me. Time-tested advice. Write your worries in the sand. Chisel yesterday's victories into stone. That's what we need to do. The battle is the Lord's. That's the first stone, the lesson of the first stone. Remember the victories of the past. The second stone teaches us to take time for prayer, the much needed stone of prayer. Before David aimed high to take out the giant, he went low to get prepared. Never, ever try to take on your giants without going low by humbling yourself before God in prayer. Paul understood this when he was writing about our spiritual warfare in Ephesians 6. I love the way the Message really turns this powerful for me. In the same way, prayer is essential in this ongoing warfare. Pray hard and long. Go for it. Prayer spawned David's successes. In reading about David's life, you will see that whenever he was strong, he was praying. When he was weak, he wasn't praying. Just consider some examples very quickly. The first is when his soldiers are ready to rebel against him. We read in 1 Samuel 30, David was greatly distressed because the men were talking of stoning him. That's a pretty good rebellion. Each one was bitter in spirit because of his sons and daughters, but David found strength in the Lord his God. Saul's soldiers were trying to capture him. He turned to God. We read, "But I will sing of your strength. In the morning I will sing of your love, for you are my fortress, my refuge in times of trouble." He survived as a fugitive on the run, hiding in caves, by praying, "Be good to me, God." And now, I've run to you for dear life. I'm hiding out under your wings until the hurricane blows over. I call out to high God, the God who holds me together. That might be a good one to write down, to be able to pull out, to use along the way. And then he made this affirmation. He sends orders from heaven and saves me. He humiliates those who kick me around. God delivers generous love. He makes good on his word. When David soaked his mind in God, he stood. When he didn't, he flopped. Question: how much time do you think David spent in prayer the day he seduced Bathsheba? How much prayer on the day he wrote out and he gave the command to have Bathsheba's husband and his good friend Uriah murdered? And then he had the audacity to give the command to Uriah to deliver to the front lines himself. Highly doubtful that he prayed those days. So mark well this additional promise that ties in here. You will keep in perfect peace, Isaiah writes, all who trust in you, all whose thoughts are fixed on you. Now, God doesn't promise just peace. He promises perfect peace. Who's given this promise? Those whose minds are fixed on God. David, when his mind was not fixed on God, strayed greatly. So this is more than an occasional glance that we give God. It's more than a once-a-week consideration. Peace is promised to the person who fixes thoughts and desires on the mighty King of Kings and what he desires. Are you needing peace at all in your life? Fix your thoughts on God. Invite his presence by picking up the stone of prayer. And then don't neglect this third stone. To make God's name your priority. David didn't take his comfort or success. He didn't make that his priority. His priority was his concern for the reputation of God as this pagan belittled God. David jealously and zealously guarded God's name. No one was going to defame his God and get away with it. And so as he went to fight, David declared, and I love the way this reads again in the Message. It just makes it to where it feels like I could use this going up against the enemy. You come at me with sword and spear and battle axe. I come at you in the name of the God of angel armies, the God of Israel's troops, whom you curse and mock. This very day, God is handing you over to me. I'm about to kill you, cut off your head, and serve up your body and the bodies of your Philistine buddies to the crows and coyotes. The whole earth will know that there is an extraordinary God in Israel. And everyone gathered here will learn that God doesn't save by means of sword or spear. The battle belongs to God. He's handing you to us on a platter. David viewed Goliath as an opportunity for God to show off. Did David know with certainty that he would leave the battlefield alive that day? He didn't. He was willing to give his life to protect the reputation of his great and good God. So I wonder, what if we saw our giants in the same way? What if your giant is just an opportunity for God to flex his spiritual biceps and to show off so that people can see the power of God at work in your life? What if God is using your challenge as an opportunity to display his infinite capacity and his omnipotent ability? Rather than bemoaning the presence of the giant, dare I say, be grateful and dare to say that I will make it a great day by the power of God. It's an opportunity to be the servant of God who demonstrates his greatness, displays his goodness to us. We love to show off God's blessings. But what if he uses burdens? What if he uses our burdens to display his faithfulness? So rather than regretting the presence of the giant, how about using it as a chance to say, thank you, Lord, for bringing this Goliath into my world. I count it as a joyful opportunity that you would allow this challenge to come into my life, because this is an opportunity for people who don't know about you to see you at your faithful best. Do you dare pray that prayer? What if you were to see your illness as God's opportunity to flex his healing muscles? What if you were to see your sin as an opportunity for God to display his grace and how he can forgive? What if you were to see your struggling marriage as an opportunity for God to display his power? When everyone else is ready to write you off, God steps in. When everyone else knows that there are no other options for victory, that you've run out of all these earthly abilities, they know that it's God who delivers victory. So see your struggle not as God's mistake, but as God's canvas upon which he can paint with his vibrant supremacy, his grace, his mercy, his forgiveness, his deliverance. If you will jealously make it your priority to guard the name of Almighty God, then you're ready for this next stone to rekindle your passion. David didn't try to avoid battle. It's kind of interesting. As Goliath moved closer to attack, most people would step back. David quickly ran out to meet him, and reaching into his shepherd's bag and taking out a stone, he hurled it with his sling and hit the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank in, and Goliath stumbled and fell face down to the ground. David didn't run away from his giant. He ran toward his giant. What a movie scene this makes. You see, on one side of the valley, as this is put out there for the drama, we find Saul and all of his soldiers on one side kind of hiding out, cowering in fear in their tents, as Goliath and the Philistine army, as Goliath is over there making all of his claims. All the smart money is on the giant in Vegas. No one's betting on the boy. David's brothers aren't. They're trying to keep him from going out. Saul isn't. He's trying to discourage him. No one is thinking that this spindly boy with no armor and a slingshot has even a shot, a chance. And all of a sudden, he's running. He's running and he's reaching into his bag and he pulls out one of those stones he selected and he puts it in the sling. And as he's running, he begins to swing it. Whoosh, 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 poof. And I pictured Goliath at that point, seeing this. He's kind of put his head back and he is just roaring with laughter at the thought. And as he does, he exposes the one vulnerable spot on his forehead that isn't covered by armor, and the stone hits home in that precise spot. And like a staggering boxer, down goes Goliath, down goes Goliath, down goes Goliath. And David runs, stands over the fallen giant, and he picks up the giant's huge sword, and then he separates his head from the body with a mighty swing. The battle's over. God's glorified. The people of Israel are delivered because David acted with passion and ran in the direction of the giant. Pause to consider the significance of those verses for us. Most of us are well practiced at running away from the giants that confront us. We duck to avoid them. We suppress them so we can ignore them. We stare at sometimes and are paralyzed by them. We list our problems, we recite our troubles, we complain, we bellyache, we're overwhelmed. When was the last time you stood up in the strength of the Lord and said, you are not going to get the best of me? In the name of the God of heaven's armies, I am coming straight at you. I am coming at you, depression. I am coming at you, disease. I am coming at you, addiction. In the name of God, I am coming at you. You may not fall the first time, but I am going to keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. The battle is the Lord's. When was the last time you ran toward your problem instead of away from it? What if your problem is an opportunity for God to display His power through you, so that you will be able to say, when I thought it was hopeless, God, I turned to God and He stepped in and He delivered me. Now we're talking about engaging giants here, and that's why we need the last stone to engage persistence. David didn't just pick up one stone. He picked up 5. Did he lack faith? I don't think so. Like many others, I think the reason he picked up 5 stones was because he knew Goliath had 4 very large relatives. One of them was named Ishbi-Benob. Great name. I haven't heard that name lately. If you're having kids, don't make fun of his name. Ishbi-Benob was a descendant of the giants. His bronze spearhead weighed more than 7 pounds. If that spearhead hits you, it's doing damage. Another one was named Saph. He's another descendant of the giants. In addition, we read about the brother of Goliath of Gath. The handle of his spear was as thick as a weaver's beam. How big is a weaver's beam? The Message says flagpole. It's throwing flagpoles at you with a 7-pound spearhead. That's what's coming after you. These 3 behemoths, I think, must have seemed harmless compared to the final one. With the description, I think King Kong and Godzilla together might have a good battle against this guy. They encountered a huge man with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all, who was a descendant of the giants. These 4 Philistines were descendants of the giants of Gath, but David and his warriors killed them. So why did David collect 5 stones? He may have thought that Goliath's 4 relatives were going to be ready to carry on the fight right after him, and if necessary, David was going to be ready for them. He would reload, and he would run toward the next giant. You see, there are times when more than one stone is needed. You need to persist and press forward. Sometimes one prayer is insufficient. Sometimes it can take more than one session of counseling. Sometimes one apology won't cut it. Sometimes one display of determination, one place where you take your stand, it's inadequate. You have to keep reloading to press forward while you never, never, ever give up. You just keep swinging that sling. And at some point, by the power of God, with the strength of the Almighty King of Kings behind you, your Goliath is going down. I believe that's the message that God wants us to receive through the example of David, who believed that the battle is the Lord's. And then he did something about it. Make this your resolution today. I will battle in the name of the Lord Almighty. I will battle in the name of the Lord Almighty. I will battle in the name of the Lord Almighty. It's not you now, it's the Lord Almighty who is coming to your aid. Now, you may be thinking that your Goliath is never going down. Stand against that lie. Stand against that lie. God brings giants down. Just keep swinging, reloading, and moving forward. Make sure you take those 5 stones with you. Remember your past, what God has done. Take time to pray. Keep God, His name, His reputation as your priority. Rekindle your passion. Be ready to go after this. And then engage persistence and keep on. David did this, and he brought Goliath down. The same God who fought that battle is the God who fights battles for us.